Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Internet of Things and the SAP Leonardo portfolio. What's it all about and why does it affect us? So just to start off, I thought we'd take a little bit of a look into history. And when we used to travel, we used to take many different things with us. So we used to take obviously a phone if we were lucky, and we'd need our map books to find our way around. We may need to take a torch with us, a camera, and if we were lucky we had a digital camera back then. And if we wanted some music to listen to, we'd have CDs, a CD player, we might need a guidebook, so on and so forth. We need our diary with us, our notepads and things like that. And it all adds up to a lot of things. Whereas, of course, in these days, we take one simple thing, it's digitized, and that thing can obviously do a great deal of things for us, all the way from making the phone calls, giving us navigation, taking the photos, and of course sharing all our music and information with our friends if we need to. So this type of technology is impacting everybody in the modern world and actually having an impact on what we do. And whether we like it or not, it's happening from even before we are born these days, looking at how we take that information and do things with it. Now, the great thing about this is, of course, it's not information that is hurting us in any way, it's actually enhancing our lives. And in many cases, we don't even know that the Internet of Things is actually being used by us and is actually benefiting us. One example of this which I like to talk about is my dog Ace. Ace has a chip in him and he doesn't even know anything about it, but it enhances his life and makes him better because it gives me better control and allows me to go and find him when he goes running away. Let's hear from Ace.
I know you have a chip in you, don't you? Can you explain to me what that's all about? No? What's a chip for? Good boy.
So Ace doesn't understand why he has a chip, but of course his life is benefiting from it. And that's what the Internet of Things is all about. How do we take all this different information that's out there and actually start to make use of it? Let's take an example of a vehicle, something close to my heart being a logistics person. Modern vehicles nowadays have many sensors and many feeds of data going through. But that's great, but how do we actually start to make sense of these things? And that's where Leonardo comes in. How do we take this soup of information that's out there, this global mass of data coming from all these different things, and how do we actually make something useful out of it? How do we drive business benefit from this? Well, let's take a look at what SAP is doing in the Leonardo space. Let's look at how do we look at this data and see what's happening tomorrow. So, with our different types of devices, we can take this information and start providing better solutions for the end users and of course for organizations. For instance, when we talk about our connected home innovations and things like that, using our outreach to Ariba and things in terms of the network, how do we get that information and do something with it? All of these connected items within our homes, within our lives, are all influencing what's happening. Now, why is this important to customers? Let's take a look at a bit of a history behind some of the largest companies in the world. And when we look at a lot of them in the past, a lot of financial companies, a lot of oil and mining and those types of companies out there, but as we're seeing the progression moving to more tech companies. And this is important to us because it starts to show that all of these different devices and the Internet of Things and what's happening out there are driving change, and they're driving the change to organizations. And if your organization isn't getting on board with this change, obviously you'll know that your competitors are, and that's going to cause us issues, and we're going to be obviously back in the 2000s where we're not dealing with all this new technology and driving us forward. So it's pretty important stuff. So what's SAP doing about this? What is our solution to how do we take all this information and actually do something meaningful with it? We can break this down into 6 main components of what we call SAP Leonardo. It's all about integrating today's transformational technologies. And the way in which we do that is we take the information from the Internet of Things, how we connect these things and these people and this process, how to manage all that data coming from all these devices, so our big data, managing vast amounts of that big data, and where needed, using machine learning to actually influence and use that data. For instance, payments coming in from customers, we can automatically match now via machine learning to our outstanding debts and things like that. And of course, allowing us to see that information better in a human readable way that's meaningful to us, where we bring in our analytics. So gaining better insights, and of course even allowing our analytics to drill down for us and suggest different meanings of this. Now, all that top layer is great, but what we really need to also think about is how do we innovate? How do we bring all these different technologies to light? And this is where design thinking comes in. How do we take an organization and get those ideas out so we can actually build all this intelligence into the system? And one of the ways in which we do that is putting these ideas into a data intelligence model and also building those ideas out on our cloud platform. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Of course, we have the blockchain side of it, which is for our cryptocurrencies, and the distributed ledger, allowing us to make peer-to-peer movements of money as well. Obviously a disrupting technology happening at the moment, which is all very exciting. So what does that mean for the core? Of course, we always talk about SAP and our digital core, and of course that's S4HANA right now, and how we bring those different elements in where this influences is actually going out even further. So obviously we have our cloud solutions going out and reaching into our workforce, into our supply chain, but what the Internet of Things is allowing us to do is to take that to the next level, and through our Leonardo platform is bring that data in to influence what's actually happening in our core business. Now, let's talk about that in a bit more detail. Before, we had very transactional data flowing through our core, and that's fine, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't show us innovation. It doesn't give us information about what's actually happening. We'd have to go into the system, pull out reports, look at them, try and see where we have an answer to those reports and move on. Now we can get the system to intelligently make decisions for us and actually show us solutions. And this is where the machine learning side of things comes in to our core data, and of course taking those data feeds from all those different areas. So how does Leonardo actually do this? What are the various components that allow us to make this all happen? Well, let's talk about this data to start off with. So the data from things, data coming in and actually being usable and meaningful information. And of course it's really important for us to have that connectivity and have that data security to bring that in. Now when we have the data, obviously we need to store it and do something with it, and this is where the cloud HANA database comes in. So we can hold that information in a meaningful in-memory computer-based database. The technologies I spoke about obviously are sitting here, but we also need to expose those technologies from the analytics point of view, the machine learning, to our end users for our user experience. And what that results in, of course, is our ability to generate dashboards and look at this information, ultimately influencing decisions by people and getting a valuable outcome. So all those different elements all working together. Now, how does that actually break down into the different areas of Leonardo and what we can do? As you can see here, we have many different areas, all using what we call the Leonardo Bridge. The Leonardo Bridge is a technology that allows us to take all this soup of data that's out there, all these data feeds, and actually bring them in to influence these different areas. So when we look at these different areas, we have obviously leading from connected products, so product insights into goods and equipment, and of course our supply networks, our assets, so all our machinery, our manufacturing execution, and of course manufacturing networks. We look at mobile devices in fleet, in terms of actually how do we manage that fleet, how do we make sure we're doing it safely, and of course we're directing the fleet into the right areas in the right time. Let's talk about infrastructure as well. Obviously nothing can move without it, so obviously our building insights, our construction, our energy grid and things like that. And when we come into marketing, obviously we have market insights and people, but most important part, of course, how is the health and fitness going, how are the people in work, tracking, monitoring, all those different elements. So obviously one Leonardo bridge to connect to our different devices that we all use these days and influence our lives, but from a business process and a category point of view, these are the different areas which we can use Leonardo. Now, let's take this a little further and talk about how does that influence or change what we do within SAP. So obviously we know we have S4 as the core system, but if we want to develop and change and use all this data from the Leonardo platform, what we can do is develop that in the SAP HANA Cloud platform. And what that allows us to do is to take the information and influence our core without actually changing our core, allowing us to have easy to use and easy to upgrade core systems in the future, but having these innovations and these insights built external to the core so we can take advantage of them from a business point of view. Obviously a big advantage there because it allows us to keep our core stable and secure. So let's break that down to the next layer. Again, talking about this Leonardo bridge, having the information from our Internet of Things flowing through to our different areas, our products, assets, fleet, infrastructure, marketing and people. And we have, of course, our Leonardo Foundation. Our foundation is basically the engine room, if you will. So this is how we bring the information in. The engine room underneath is essentially holding that information from a data management point of view, connectivity and the messaging, and obviously the business services in terms of the application development and how do we actually build those different areas. What that allows us to do, of course, this is all sitting on the SAP Cloud platform, and that allows us to bring everything together as one in that single platform. So, if we look at the big picture, how does this all work together? Let's take an organization, and here we have obviously from procurement, research and development, supply chain, manufacturing, logistics, sales, and of course after sales service. All of this is managed by the actual S4 core, but influenced by SAP Leonardo apps. So how do these physical things, as we mentioned earlier, everyone has them, even if we know it or not, actually influencing the core manufacturing, the supply chain, the tracking of those vehicles we were talking about, how does the manufacturing work, all influencing what's actually happening in our core system. So what does that mean for our customers, and what's the purpose of actually doing this? Of course, what we want to do is to get the things to give us outcomes, and what this is all about is taking that value chain from our things that we have out there to driving our outcomes, allowing us to have lower costs, new revenue streams, optimized productivity, improved turnarounds, less waste, and new products and everything else that we get from those outcomes. Very, very important, obviously, driving our businesses to make them more efficient and more optimized in the future. So, let's talk about how we might do this in an organization. As you can see, we already have lots of this built. Although SAP Leonardo is a new innovation, it's actually been around for a while. And we have lots of innovations that have already been pre-built within our portfolio, which we can leverage within the platform which we're now labeling SAP Leonardo. Now this is good because we've got lots of pre-built, already used and proven technologies that we can use. For instance, if we look at mobile asset insights, our vehicle insights and our predictive maintenance, our asset intelligence network allows us to see what's happening out there. Our customers are already using this. We've got thousands of cars around the world already sending information through. Our trucks and other vehicles sending information through. If we look at logistics and safety, our connected parking, dangerous goods, our track and trace abilities, Fontero using track and trace to track the baby formula powder through the supply chain network to ensure that no counterfeit baby supplies or baby powder supplies are going out to market. That's live, it's happening. People out there can actually now scan their tins of baby powder through a 3D barcode and actually look at what has happened to that baby powder all the way through the supply chain, giving them confidence. And of course it gives the customer, as in Fonterra in this case, the edge over its competitors, because Fonterra's customers know that the product is safe, they know where it's come from, and they know what's happening. So all these areas of Leonardo in terms of pre-built technologies are there, they're being used by our customers, and they're being successful out in the industry, driving customers further. But you might think, okay, there are lots of different providers of technologies out there. Why would I use SAP? Well, one of the reasons we'd want to use SAP, of course, is the fact that we're deploying this in many, many areas across many customers. You don't need to be the guinea pig. Let us work with you in terms of actually developing these technologies and putting them out there. And as you can see here, we've got lots of very blue chip companies that we're already developing with and already using these technologies. So how do we do this? How do we get started with your organization to ensure that we actually have the right types of innovations and we can use them successfully? Well, first of all, obviously SAP has been in the industry area for a long, long time, and what it allows us to do is to look at our different industries, taking our industry knowledge to look at retail, consumer products, discrete manufacturing, chemicals, travel, utilities, so on and so forth. We have these industry areas, we know what's going on in those industries, and a lot of those industries are key users of the SAP system, of course. So we can then take that knowledge and develop software based on design thinking implementations. What design thinking is all about is allowing us to accelerate and bring out these ideas within your industry based on our industry knowledge to innovate. So design thinking workshops can be held. We can then look at what are the new ideas, what are the new innovations that are required, and obviously bring forth new ideas. For example, let's take the car industry, for instance. All the way from manufacturing, how do we manufacture better? How do we take the servicing better, the financial services? And even if we go down to maybe not the car industry, but the providers of services for the car industry. Let's take BP, for instance. They're currently looking at how do we actually pay for fuel at the service station. So now we can drive into a BP service station. I don't even need to get out of the car. I can scan the pump as I fill up and then pay for it on my mobile app and then leave. I don't even need to go into the store. A great example of how the Internet of Things is influencing what's actually happening out there. But don't just take my word for it. You know, we can prototype anything you like. We can prototype any areas we want in terms of ideas, taking your industry sector, having a look at what we need to do, and the way in which we would do that is we use, in many cases, SAP value prototyping. What this allows us to do is to innovate in an accelerated way, taking that innovation platform and doing a fast-track project to accelerate better decision-making, actually bringing out tangible proof from these ideas and these innovations. So of course what we could do is we can prepare and run a POC on a hosted environment, and then of course bring it across to realization and bring that into your organization that you can actually use it and start getting the benefits from it. So we can help you with that as we go through. For instance, let's have a look at this example here, a smartphone application for field agents. Part of a design thinking outcome. You know, we need to be able to get out there, and the field agents need to be able to register information on their iPhone. It gives us much better control, much better technology. People love to use it, of course, because it's on their device, it's nice and easy to use, it's all good from that regard. But from a back end, of course, what we can do, again leveraging the SAP Cloud Platform, we can actually take that data and put it into meaningful insights. And that's what this is all about, of course, is getting that data into this in a meaningful way so we can use analytics and actually make better decisions about it. And just an example of a prototype coming to fruition. But don't just take our word for it, of course. Have a look at what our customers are saying and what our customers are actually doing. There are many, many examples of the existing technologies out there being used by SAP customers now. So for instance, we look at the company here from a connected agriculture point of view. They're out there collecting the data from the farmers and actually supporting some of the most rural areas and actually getting that data. This just wasn't possible before we had the Leonardo platform connected to the Internet of Things. Talking about connected fleet and this idea of vehicle insights, we can reduce maintenance cost by 10% across a fleet. Makes a big deal when you're talking about large assets like trains and things like that. We look at still here, again, reducing costs, increasing revenue, increasing efficiency, getting intelligent feeds from their forklifts so they can actually see what's wrong with them before problems become big business issues. Wind turbines, real-time monitoring across them, so having a digital twin of that wind turbine so you can see exactly what's happening with it real time, taking the sensor feeds and actually looking at them so we can see what's going on. Predictive maintenance, we've got overheating or vibration, we can go out and fix those things before they become issues again. Again, an asset-based company, reducing their asset maintenance, and when we talk about cities and the other area, obviously it's not just about assets, increasing the response rate to infrastructure issues by 80%. So there's a big change. So what I've been through there is talking you through how do we take these influencing technologies, whether we know they're influencing us or not. In the case of Ace, he doesn't know he's got a chip inside him, but it's actually changing how his life is actually being benefited by the fact that he's using this Internet of Things. How do we take this big kind of soup of data that's surrounding us and actually turning it into something meaningful in terms of business insights and business technologies. So taking that outcome from all this data that's surrounding us and turning it into something meaningful via the SAP Leonardo platform. Thank you very much for your time.